Senator McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President, and I thank you, Senator Burston, for bringing this very important issue to the attention of the chamber this afternoon. Like many people in the Northern Territory, I find myself continually perplexed at the government's scattered response to PFAS. As my colleagues know, I have spoken in this chamber many times about PFAS in Katherine and the Northern Territory, and the Katherine community has been seriously impacted by chemical contamination of its water supply. Many of you will recall seeing the Four Corners last year, which told the stories of people in Katherine. People were shocked, worried and anxious. Understandably, the Katherine people are anxious about the widespread nature of the PFAS contamination and the unknown consequences of ingesting or recreationally coming into contact with PFAS. And we now all know the primary PFAS exposure pathway for humans is from drinking water. Other exposure routes can include eating foodstuffs produced from impacted land and water systems like fish, poultry, meat and vegetables. Katherine's bores, a drinking supply, is contaminated with traces of PFAS. Since the contamination was detected, Katherine residents were told not to drink the water. They faced water restrictions, have been told that they had to wait for blood tests and have had new water tanks installed. All of these things they took in their stride. They've been attending information sessions, but there is no clarity around when the announcement of blood tests will take place. And this is of serious concern for the people of Katherine, and I must let this Senate know, and certainly the Parliament know, that that delay is so unnecessary and is causing a great deal of anxiety. Just for some context, when it comes to the lack of transparency around government's response to PFAS in Katherine, the face that the government can't or won't share information about them is nothing new. The fact that they don't do that is nothing new. Regular calls for a single point of contact for PFAS on the ground in Katherine have gone unanswered. Since PFAS was found in Katherine, residents have been dealing with numerous government agencies, and during estimates I was referred to Health, Defence and PMC for answers. That's what I can do in here as the Senator for the Northern Territory, be told to go to different agencies. But for people on the ground in our communities to be told to go from one bureaucracy to another bureaucracy to another bureaucracy to get the answers that they so desperately need has not been good for the people of Katherine. In December last year, Katherine Town Council Mayor Faye Miller came to Canberra to meet with ministers regarding the response to PFAS and to look for some answers for the people of Katherine. As the people of Katherine have done through their mayor in the Katherine Town Council, I certainly thank Defence Minister Senator Payne for responding with bottled water, installing water tanks and placing defence contact points on the ground in Katherine. Like the people of Katherine, though, I still have questions. Since PFAS was found in the water, the member for Katherine, Sandra Nelson, the member for Lingiari, Warren Snowden, and I have repeatedly asked that the people of Katherine receive the same response to PFAS that other places around Australia have received. More specifically, we echoed the calls for voluntary blood tests for people living in the affected areas. These calls for blood testing were belittled by the government, and residents were simply told to wait, and that any blood test wouldn't really show much. We only have to look at the transcripts in Hansard to see the response to my numerous requests for these blood tests. The calls from residents were also ignored. I know, and so do the people of Katherine, that the blood tests offered to others, to other families in other jurisdictions, were offered at the same time as other environmental testing was being undertaken. And for anyone who wants to argue that point, I refer you again to the estimates Hansards. You only have to look at our record on the Hansard in the consistent questioning on this issue. If blood tests will give the people of Katherine some peace of mind and reduce anxiety and confusion, why does the government insist on denying them this process? Why? Why are they denying the people of Katherine the process of blood testing? On December 3, I was alerted to a joint announcement from Minister Scullion, Minister Hunt and Minister Payne that the people of Katherine would receive blood tests. We were certainly very pleased in the lead-up in particular to Christmas and the end of the year, in the hope that this was the beginning of some important positive signals being sent to residents in the region. We were so pleased to hear this announcement, and it was received with a great deal of hope. It was what the people of Katherine had asked for. It was what we were lobbying for within this parliament and my colleagues in the other house. Now they were finally going to receive this. A $5.7 million support package was going to help this happen. The announcement was consistent with the services that are being provided to the communities of Williamtown, New South Wales and Oakey, Queensland, and are available to anyone who lives or works or who has lived or worked in the RAAF-based Tyndall investigation area. The local member for Katherine, Sandra Nelson, said, "After a year of lobbying and advocating, I am so relieved." And that was the immediate thought of so many people in Katherine. We were also told that the government would be commissioning the NT Primary Health Network to facilitate the voluntary blood testing program with local GPs. 8 weeks later from that announcement, here I am, still standing in the Senate, still calling on the federal government, talking about blood tests that people of Katherine should have received by now. Blood tests that people of Katherine should have been lining up for to make sure that they were being tested. 8 weeks since that announcement and not one blood drop taken. So the people of Katherine are still waiting. On February 2nd, the government's Deputy Chief Medical Officer, Dr Tony Hobbs, said in a radio interview that the voluntary blood tests will now not be available until March. So how is this possible? The people of Katherine have had 18 months of anxiety, and just before the end of last year they were given some sense of hope, and still there is delay upon delay. Dr Hobbs also said that a contract had not yet been signed with the Primary Health Network, so there would be no government funding testing until that had happened. No contract signed. A radio interview is how Katherine residents are finding out about the rollout of the blood tests, or the absence of the rollout. There was a commitment, a $5.7 million support package that the government made, and now they are again leaving Katherine residents in the dark about when this will happen. There is no timeline as to when these tests will be made available to the Katherine residents. Now, no one wants to see medical services overloaded with a demand that they can't meet, and I have heard this is a barrier to opening up the blood tests immediately. But we have to ask the question, what is going to change in March? Will there be an increase in the number of doctors and nurses in Katherine to meet the demand? What will happen with the second and third round of blood tests? Labor has consistently called for a national solution to PFAS. We know that PFAS is a national problem that needs a national solution. The Turnbull government is certainly failing in this particular area in terms of information about the timing of the promised blood tests. Its promised solution announced in May has yet to materialise. Labor will not allow this continual failure and the absence of information to people who so desperately need reassurance, and they need confidence. They need to know that not only the government but the Australian Parliament is serious about this issue impacting some of the most vulnerable people in our country and in our regions. Thank you.
Thank you.